Bright Lotus.
Hi, I'm Ekai Joel Kreisberg, and I'd like to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the fall practice period at Shining Bright Lotus Meditation Society. The theme for this 8-week practice period is awakening the compassionate heart. And I'd like to spend a few minutes sharing with you why we're going to be practicing, focusing so much on compassion practice and how that relates to the Mahayana practice as well as to the teachings of Jinpo Roshi and Manda Zen. To begin with, I would like to, a little language piece. I'm going to be using loving kindness and compassion interchangeably. They are a technical difference, but the idea is we're working with the heart, right? We're working with opening the heart. We're working with opening our hearts to others. We're working with the Bodhisattva vow. Hollow bones for awakened vows. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to serve and liberate them all. Is the Bodhisattva vow. My experience of practicing now for 12 years as a Hollow Bones practitioner and sitting with Jinpo Roshi for close to 10 of those is the strong emphasis in two areas. One is in dhyana practice, concentration practice, meditation, where the intention is to concentrate long enough to stabilize clear, deep heart mind. In the last few years, the language has sort of evolved, particularly since there's been a bunch of research completed where we start to talk about persistent non-symbolic experience. But historically, dhyana, Chan, Zen were the words for the experience when the narrative self, the relative mind, sometimes Jinpo calls that the ego, settles and quiets, and then we begin to remember and choose the ultimate reality, one in which clear, deep heart mind is ever present. And so we practice, we meditate. We practice daily through Zazen practice. We practice through weekly, more group practices. We go on sesshin annually retreats where we concentrate and we settle. For many, over time, clear, deep heart mind starts to stabilize, and we can find that without so much effort, clear, deep heart mind arises, is ever present, because we know that it doesn't come and go. Another language that I'm starting to use a lot is metacognitive awareness. Metacognition meaning thinking about thinking when I'm reflecting on my experience, and metacognitive awareness is when I'm able to reflect on the experience of metacognition of awareness. So clear, deep heart mind, it's often in the literature, awareness, pure awareness is embodied, is embodied, is embodied. Pure awareness, my awareness, your awareness, all awareness, this awareness, this awareness. So we could say that awareness of awareness is to be meta-aware. And to think, to be able to perceive that is metacognitive awareness. So you'll start to notice if you sit with me that I begin to help point out, to start to attend to metacognitive awareness, thinking about the experience of awareness, noticing clear, deep heart mind. And so as the concentration practices stabilize and we are more able to embody clear, deep heart mind, then you begin to notice that awareness is present all the time. And it's sometimes clouded over by ego, but it's here. It doesn't go away. This does not come and go. The other practice that Manda Zen attends to in Junpo's teachings is the koan work around emotional koans, which is very much with the intention of learning to become metacognitively aware while under the spell of strong emotions. All good practices. As I've been exploring various types of Buddhism, I started to explore other Mahayana practices, Zen, Chan being a Mahayana practice, that's the second turning, and discovered that many Mahayana practices also tend to specifically after that original dhyana practice of concentration, that's very similar to sesshin-based meditation, to have developed an extensive compassion practices. So I looked into them, and I feel the need to spend this fall practice period exploring compassion practice. And so that's what we're doing. Quick historical context. The first turning, the Theravada or Hinayana, is the practices in which Gautama Buddha woke up. Four Noble Truths, dependent 12 links of dependent arising, with the idea that there's the relative mind, and then there's a way in which we can, which is often related to samsara, and then there's nirvana or enlightenment, there's a waking up when we begin to have the experience of clear deep heart mind, of dhyana, Chan, Zen. And when you look at that and you notice the emphasis on individual awakening, second turning, the Mahayana practice, there's a bunch of distinguishes, but one of the distinguishes is that personal enlightenment is not the be-all and end-all of practice. The idea is that awakening is something for all beings. So my practice, the Bodhisattva vow, is however innumerable all beings are, a vow to serve and liberate them all. So there's this idea of collective awakening. There's also more technically, which is the teachings of Nagarjuna, the recognition that if the relative ego mind is empty, then perhaps, and empty doesn't mean nothing. Empty means that there is no fixed identity, there's no fixed concept and meaning. Everything is dependently co-arising. That's true for the relative. That is also true for the ultimate. The awakened, enlightened, is also empty. It's not the same empty as the relative. It's still awakened, but it too is dependently co-arising, and that both the dualities are empty, and that there is an awareness that one can become attuned to that is beyond the dualities of the relative and ultimate self. That is Mahayana as well. Regardless, needless to say, that's not our work here today. The work is that first idea of, well, we're going to practice for the benefit of the awakening of all beings. So compassion practice, you see it in Theravada, you see it in Mahayana, you see it in Vajrayana. The work here is to begin to build up the sense of loving kindness, of compassion for others. Where we're going to start with is, in order to build that, we start with finding it in ourselves. So that's today's theme and today's practice, is to become aware of and attend to unconditional love within the self. And the practice is to receive the unconditional love. So what do I mean receive unconditional love? Let's do a brief meditation. So the invitation is for you to close your eyes. Bring your breath inside. Just gently attune to any sensations, feelings, thoughts. What is the status of your surface of the mind? Is it busy? Is it quiet? Is it curious? Now I want you to bring to mind someone from your childhood who was very loving, or who really, really accepted you for who you are, who you were. Someone who unconditionally was there for you, is fundamentally good, profoundly influenced your being. I want you to allow that person's love, the memory of that love, in. Try to identify the qualities of their love and how it impacts your body, your feelings, your way of being. Just allow yourself to open to receiving the unconditional love from this person that showed up for you as much as they did when you were younger. We're going to call this person a benefactor. So you have identified a benefactor, allowed yourself to notice the quality of unconditional love that you receive from the benefactor. Okay, come on back. So in the meditation that we did, we did, actually we did in the opening ceremony, we did, which is going to be the theme for all the meditations I'm going to teach for the next 8 weeks, is the first thing that we do is bring to mind our benefactors. Who or what is a benefactor? A benefactor can be someone who at any point during your life provided you with unconditional love. Parents, grandparents, care providers, spiritual teachers and mentors. They could be living, they could be dead. When I noticed when I did this morning, Junpo showed up for me, so I felt good about that. But I also noticed that, like John Coltrane, who I never met, who was, wasn't alive. Well, he was alive, but he died in 1967. I was 8. But he was very much a spiritual benefactor for me. Received so much from his inspiration and guidance. And it was unconditional because I didn't have any other way of taking him in. But it doesn't have to be also so profound. There could be little moments where someone just showed up at the right time in the right place and just gave you what you needed magically. So, benefactors. So you're not going to do this right now. You bring to mind a benefactor. You allow yourself to receive or notice somatically, emotionally, intellectually, the experience of being held unconditionally with love. Then you bring to mind another person. And we start our meditations with 5 to 10 minutes of opening one's heart to receiving unconditional love. At some point, the meditation then moves into releasing into a dhyana practice, to releasing the mental activity into a concentration form in which we begin to sink into clear, deep heart mind. There's many different practices, and we can listen. Because what we're doing is allowing that unconditional love to bathe us as we sink into our clear, deep heart mind. And that allows these to fuse. Over time, we'll add to the practice giving love and a bunch of different stages, but for now, we're just practicing receiving love. Act compassionately. It's one of the precepts, Holabirn's precepts. Okay, so it'd be interesting to see if this is hard for you and maybe easy for you, hard for you. And some may ask, well, why do we start with receiving love? And so one of my mentors is Lama John McCransky. I'm going to be using his book, Awakening Through Love, in the 6-week course I'm teaching in the middle of the fall practice period. But I want to read this quote because this really kind of puts it in a very Mahayana sort of perspective. In order to give loving care in a stable, enduring way, we have to be able to receive loving care in a stable, enduring way. Why? because giving and receiving are of one piece, and because self and other are not so different from one another. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to serve and liberate them all. As this person's experience of clarity heart-mind continues to stabilize, recognition that self equals other stabilizes, and it isn't serving others, it's actually receiving and giving are not any different. That doesn't mean we go become selfish. It's recognizing that we need to be able to receive unconditional love and notice how much divine love, unconditional love, is in our lives every day, all the time. Our benefactors are with us. Practice tuning in and noticing them. That's where we start on awakening the compassionate heart. So please tune in to any of our programs over the next 8 weeks and start each morning's meditation by identifying the benefactors and taking in some unconditional love, and know that we are love. And through this practice, we'll awaken the compassionate heart. For the benefit of all beings.